Hey there, folks. I'm Isaac, and I defeated the Griffins of the King's Barrow.
And I'm Claire, and I just exist.
And this is Make That Game,
where we pitch the latest,
the greatest
new video game ideas
that aren't ever going to get made. We don't make them. We fake them.
We
fake it
talk
till you
about
make it,
and then we move on with our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we fake it
That's
till
the
you
only
make
thing
it.
we do.
But
fake
maybe
it till you make it. We fake it till you make it.
Ooh, that's a great new tagline.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because because our current tagline is the one that we say it's the best video game ideas that'll never get made.
Yeah.
Do we actually say that in the podcast? Is that part of the intro spiel?
Yep,
I just autopilot.
Part of the intro.
I just autopilot.
Yeah, no, that is the intro. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The greatest video game ideas that won't ever get made. Okay. Yeah. No. We do say it, but
we pitch them and ditch them. We fake it. You make it. That's the Make That Game promise.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Our cat is meowing.
He's screaming quite a bit. Screaming. I don't think you can hear him at this point.
I always say that he's meowing.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever picked up. But
well, the last episode he is in. He's in
good.
108. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, because he really... It was either 108 or 107, but he really came in here and yelled. So that was...
Yeah.
But he's too far away for these fancy podcast microphones to pick up.
Okay. Unfortunate. But maybe he'll come in, say hi, and everyone will get a special treat.
That one can only dream.
Yeah. So what do we do here?
Well, here we pitch video game ideas to each other. We talk about the design aspects of those video game ideas. That's really the number one thing we do here. And we're going to do it now. So, what?
No, I'm just...
What?
I teed it up for you.
I was doing it.
I know.
You didn't even let me finish. I was working on it. Let me cook.
Okay.
What's your game idea? There you go.
No. All right. So, my game is called You Are What You Kill.
Oh, boy.
And so it's a roguelike.
Uh-huh.
Where every time that you defeat a monster, you become that monster.
Okay, so kind of like your Dark Kirby game.
Yes. But when you defeat a monster, okay, you're walking through the dungeon. Mm-hmm. You're walking through the dungeon. You're your base form, your whatever. You fight a goblin, you become a goblin. You fight a giant spider, you become a giant spider. Another goblin comes by. You kill the goblin as a giant spider. You're a goblin again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You just got weaker because you killed a weaker enemy. So the caveats to this game are that if you use... It has to be your own ability that kills it. Like, you have to use an attack or a spell or something to defeat an enemy monster in order to become one. So if you use environmental traps or other monsters, if you have a charm ability that makes a giant spider fight a goblin, you don't become that goblin again.
Okay. I mean, this is adding a lot of mechanics all of a sudden to something that seemed pretty simple.
Oh, no, I feel like it's not that much of a mechanic. So, the basic idea is for you to get a powerful form, and then in order to keep it, you have to figure out how to not directly, fight things. You either have to avoid things, because,
now I get it. Okay.
If a goblin just keeps smacking you,
yeah,
right, that's going to eventually defeat you, but, you're not going to want to fight the goblin as the evil dark overlord.
Right, because you don't want just to be a goblin.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I get this.
And in some situations, you will find yourself, you have to defeat a bad enemy, like a little slime, in order to proceed, because it's blocking your way, or it just keeps attacking you and you can't lose it and there's nothing else. And then you have to start from scratch. And then when you're in a weak form, you also want to look out for environmental factors that might make it easier for you to defeat a more powerful thing. Because if you as a goblin can drop a chandelier on the Dark Overlord, right? Mm-hmm. And then that instantly kills him because it does fire damage or whatever. Then you become the Dark Overlord. Oh, no, that would be a trap.
I was going to say that. Then you would avoid being the Dark Overlord. Yeah.
You basically have to find environmental factors that would allow you to weaken and then defeat.
And then do the final blow.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And here's the other mechanic, and this might be too much.
Mm-hmm.
And this is only a half-baked idea. I'm not 100% certain about how it all, like, if it's a good one or not, because as I just described it, I feel like that's a solid enough game on its own.
Yeah.
So this might be adding too much to a good thing.
Okay.
This might be not too many cooks, but is there like a phrase for like too many like spices or like too many flavors? Like apple pie is good, but like apple pie with cranberries, blueberries, and pineapples in it, like all those things might be individually good, but like putting all of it together like ruins the overall thing.
I feel like there has to be, but I can't think of one. But
all right, moving on from that.
Yeah.
The possibly bad mechanic is if you defeat multiple enemies at the same time with a single like ability, you become a fusion of the enemies that you defeated.
Oh, creepy.
So if you're like a wizard and you throw a fireball and you kill 2 goblins and a spider and a wraith all at the same time, you become a gobla spider wraith.
Wow.
And you have some combined version of all the abilities.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, implementation wise, I don't know exactly how that would work. There's ways to do it, but off the top of my head, I'm like not sure which way to do it. Like, do I just additively add all the stats and abilities together? So, like, if a goblin has 3 attack power and a wraith has 8 attack power and wraith touch ability, like, are you 11 attack power with wraith touch? Or
I don't know.
Is it like the average of things?
Or, you know, it'd be cool as if like it was more random.
Or if it was random, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like Pokemon EVs and IVs and stuff. For people familiar with that concept, like a goblin has like a certain amount of base stats and a wraith has a certain amount of base stats, and it's like, okay, well, you know, you get the goblin's like attack, but the wraith's defense. And then, like, the next time you do it, you might get the wraith's attack and the goblin's defense. And there would be more stats to it than this.
Right.
To make it because, like, just 2 stats. Like, that's boring. But, yeah, you are what you kill. Roguelike. Procedural. I used... And I don't know if this is something that... Here's a deeper discussion.
Okay.
On this podcast that's about game design.
Yeah.
Is it all right for us to use, basically, like, filler words like... roguelike, because I said roguelike, and that implies a certain set of mechanics, right?
Yeah.
But people who come into this podcast might not be super familiar with like the mechanics that implies.
That's true.
So should I have explicitly stated all the mechanics that I think apply there?
Maybe. I feel like it's tough because I think we get into it. Like, if you are someone who listened to most of our podcast, we have described
That's true.
the mechanics of roguelike. And we have a video on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@makethatgame.
Yeah.
That is us literally playing through roguelites and roguelikes and kind of discussing like what that looks like. So it is tough where like we've described it before. I think it's nice to do a very brief overview, but we don't want to, you know, it'd be exhausting if every time we went deep into it. It's something we talk about a lot. I think if it was something like we'd never heard, like you just brought up, like, well, I don't think you've heard of this type of game, but it's a shmagame-badoo, then you have to describe what that is. I just made up a word.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't sure if you were referring to an actual conversation.
No.
About a shmagame-magoo.
No.
Anyways, all right.
But
for right now, we'll just say, if you know, you know, it's a roguelike. Unique mechanic is that you become what you defeat, which could be bad, but you want it to be good.
But I think we could, you could briefly say like roguelike, you know, where they
procedurally generate rooms and enemy layouts.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
So it'll never be the same thing twice.
You've done a lot of those lately.
Hey, it's easy. I'm cheating.
No,
I'm cheating by choosing easy genres. No, there's a reason why roguelikes and roguelites are like very popular like indie games, because like you can very easily like
I just wouldn't call it cheating.
Do it.
I wouldn't call it cheating. I'd call it smart.
Yeah. Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
What's your game idea?
Okay, well
as I said it, I was like, this is such a harsh transition. Like, it sounds like a jump cut.
Yeah, it wasn't, folks. It happened in real life. So last episode, I talked about a game idea I had, and Isaac kind of broke it.
Sorry.
And so I wanted to like have a redemption. I wanted to redo.
Okay.
I will say I didn't
Yeah.
do as much work on it as I had wanted to. I don't know. Time gets away from you during the week. You know
Yeah,
what
it
I mean?
does.
But I did talk to listener Meghana, who
Oh.
had an interesting idea. Actually, I should have opened this up before because she related it to another game, and that's where she got this idea. But I'll refresh our listeners or those who might not have heard. My game idea was based on Jekyll and Hyde, and it was the fact that like you would randomly turn into the like evil version, and you had like different tasks and things that you could do as evil versus good. And Isaac said, "Well, then I would just wait it out or skip until I'm whatever version of me I want to be,
Yeah.
and then do those tasks." And I said, "But that's not the point." And you said that's what players are going to be doing.
Yes.
So that's why we had to fix it.
So the I guess the homework assignment is come up with reasons why players would not do that. Disincentivize that behavior with game mechanics.
Okay, her Meghana's inspiration was Fran Bow.
Oh, I think we have that game.
Yeah. But anyway, so we had a little conversation about that, and then she kind of led me to the newer idea. So it's going to be more of an adventure game than I was previously thinking.
Okay.
Because that allows
like a point and click adventure game, or
kind of like a more maybe action adventure. Like you're doing more, but it's a little more railroaded.
Okay. All
I
right.
think that's why. So that's part of it. And then the cool mechanic is once I find my notes. When you turn, it becomes more difficult to physically control your character. So like you like actually have trouble like doing different, like it might be moving on its own and it takes like, you know, a certain number of like presses to get it to turn direction. Like you like lose control.
Okay.
And you have to do a specific action in order to turn back. So it's not a clock. You have to like drink a potion, and maybe you only have a couple on you. And so like once you run out, you have to like collect ingredients as your evil, less like movable form.
Okay.
And this is a little bit from Believe It or Not, Life is Strange 2. Your character, and this is why I wanted to put it more into action adventure versus just action.
Yeah.
Your character will react based on choices you've made so far in the game. So choices that you make as Jekyll, as like the good one, will inform how you're acting as Hyde. Like if you have a bad interaction with someone as Jekyll and then you turn into Hyde, he's going to try to like murder that person.
Okay. All right.
And you might try to stop him, and you might not be able to, or you might be able to, or you might not want to. You know, like so that's kind of the gist.
Okay. Okay, I like this. So it's not so much that you are controlling both characters, like you are always technically the good character. It feels like.
Quote unquote good, yeah.
And there are like when you go evil mode, it's not that you are trying to achieve evil mode tasks, it's that you are trying to stop, you're trying to use what limited influence that you have to stop them from achieving evil mode tasks.
Not. Like I think part of it could be a like evil ending where you like lean into the evil one and you like set things up to let evil one do evil things. I think that would be fun too. I think there's two paths.
That could be an interesting mechanic. I don't know how you would implement it on like knowing it without you could have it just be like when you start a game, you choose good path or evil path.
Oh, no, I don't want that.
But like some way of making the game know that you want it to be harder to control either the good or the evil version. Because like there is a way that you could play where you want evil version to win out. Mm-hmm. But then you shouldn't be controlling good version.
I think
good version should be the one that you're trying to take over.
The more that like the good... So like... You start as good version, I think, always, but the more bad choices you make as good version...
The more control you have over evil and less control you have over good.
Yes, that's how it works. Oh, this is cool. See?
Yeah.
I'm really glad I took the time to come back to it and to think on it a little more, because now it feels... I mean, I still don't know the story of it, but I think we get the mechanics a lot better.
Yeah, and mechanics are what's important.
On this podcast? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is that good? Do I any other?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, the actual like make that game part of it, the implementation of how exactly the game is going to, like it, the fine tuning of the balance of like evil versus good mode, and like when the game determines your control level and stuff. That would be like the key component to hone in on. Like if you were actually making the game, like, yeah, you've got the basic design right now, but now you get into the deeper, serious design that we rarely like actually touch on.
Yeah.
Where like that needle marker, that needle point, what's the threading the needle? I don't know what I'm trying to say. I feel like there's a needle thing, but
gas gauge is what you're
yeah, the
thinking
gas
of.
gauge. Like figuring out exactly like where that line draws is going to be like the fun part of like
the design,
of the deeper design and
Yeah.
implementation of it. And I think that's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. But now we just have to forget about it. So
Yeah,
that was
goodbye.
the only one we didn't forget about immediately. We had to keep going.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Okay. Well, then we need to do. Now we're going to discuss a thing, and
All
it's
right.
actually another thing we teased
Hmm?
last week.
What did we tease?
Last week we teased video games versus board games because you pitched a game that was very similar to a board game.
Oh, okay. Okay. Remind me if I already covered this point.
I might as well cover it again. We might.
Okay.
Someone might be listening for the very first time
That's
today,
true.
and if so, welcome. We're happy
Welcome.
you're here.
So, in my opinion, and I guess I want to be clear that this is a very opinion-based thing because
I mean, I feel like the discussions are often subjective.
very subjective, yeah. I
Because
mean,
it's a
game
discussion.
design, yeah. So, like, board games, and, like, the line between board games and video games, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
are really the complexity of the mechanics.
Okay.
If it's something that a person can easily manage in their head, like rolling 6-sided dice or like placing tokens on territory, that feels entirely like a board game territory. If that's all that's going on, that just feels like a board game. Like, it's extremely obvious with like video game implementations of board games. Like,
Yeah.
a video game version of Risk or Monopoly. Like,
Is there a video game version of Risk?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I actually used to have it on like my dad's computer when I was young and played it a lot, but like
I wonder what game
The only-
system. Sorry, I just was going back in time. One of my friends had Monopoly on some kind of video game, but like now that I think about it, because I didn't know much about gaming systems, I have no idea what system it was. It was just on like an old TV in their bedroom, and I don't know. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so like because they started as board games, like their mechanics are pretty simple, and like while they might have depth, they're still like the human mind is intended to be the machine that is like processing these rules and like implementing them. So like they have a certain level, like you aren't getting into like this action has like a 97% chance to succeed
Yeah, like
because dice don't get like that precise.
and the Jekyll Hyde situation wouldn't be able to happen because
Right.
there's too much back end stuff going on.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. The more back end stuff there is in like to the mechanics, the more appropriate for like a video game design that there is. And that's not to say that there can't be like complicated board games and there can't be simple video games, but I
Right.
do think that the kinds of simplicity and the kinds of complication that each one offers lends itself to like certain designs. So like
Yeah.
a simple video game like Galaga or something, like that's a simple video game. There's enemies, they spawn at the top of the screen,
Oh,
they
yeah,
fly
okay.
at you, you shoot at them.
I do know this.
That's like a very
I was
simple
like,
game.
What's this? But no, I do know this.
But that's not like a board, like you couldn't make that as a board game.
You know, one other thing I'd like to throw into the mix here, and again, I do want to, even though we talked about being subjective, like I know there's exceptions to every rule.
Yeah.
Like I know, like, well, but what about, like, yeah, I know. But another aspect of them, I often talk about the only child test. A lot of board games don't pass the only child test, let me tell you. Like, video games can be group or party games. They can
Yep.
be over the internet, right? Like, you can play with people, but a lot of video games are targeted towards being at least having the option to play by yourself.
Yes.
Whereas most board games don't. It's hard to find board games that only require 2 people. Like,
Right,
a lot of them you need
right.
at least 3. And as an only child, that was very annoying, I will say. You can only play Clue with 2 people so many times before your brain develops enough, and it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's like the major perk, I think, of like taking a board game design and putting it
yeah.
as a video game.
because you can play by yourself. You can play against the computer.
Yep. And then the third, I guess the second, third, I don't know. The advantage to it is playing online, playing with people remotely.
Right.
Like Gloomhaven has, I believe, a digital implement. I can't remember if it's like just a tabletop simulator mod or if it has its own like game.
Right.
That is the board game, but 3D graphics, and you play with your friends all over the world. And that's like a cool thing. And it's nice to see like the animations and stuff that you wouldn't get in a board game, and you get to like visually see like
I mean,
your little guy slash a bandit with a sword, and you're like, wow, the board game doesn't do that.
I know. I do like, I will say I love touching the physical pieces. Like
Yes.
there's a joy in like the physical manipulation of those things. But yeah, I do think the flexibility to play with people who don't live with you or aren't like physically right there, and the flexibility to play alone is a great reason to convert a board game to a video game. And I do think that so there are board games that have single player options. So like Everdell is the only one I've played by myself, but it does have a single player. And it's kind of odd because you kind of play the computer. Like you take turns by yourself. That's how they do it. So it's like, it doesn't feel...
What do you mean you take turns by yourself?
So basically like you play, you're one player, you roll and you do things, but then like so Everdell's set up in seasons. That's kind of like how the game's structured. Every season you have to roll for like a rat that's like your enemy.
Okay.
And you roll to see what the rat does. So I feel like that it's almost like playing against the computer, right? Like you're manipulating the quote unquote computer, but
do you only roll one dice?
I can't remember. It's been a while since I played it.
One die. That's where computer comes in handy, because like if you're rolling one die, there's 6 possible results. There's a 16% chance of any like given result. Oh, but you're saying happening.
If you could roll like 20, then you would have more different outcomes.
Yeah, and like you could roll a d20, you could roll 2d20, you could roll d10 times d10 and like get different like variations with like just dice. But in a computer, you obviously have a lot more flexibility in how you generate these random numbers and how like things are distributed. And I think that makes things that require like an AI generation. Then it's up to like how many possible actions could there possibly be? Because like you could generate a number between 1 and a million, and it's like, are there a million?
Everdell, like no, no. Like there probably are 6 options. I can't. It's been a while. I can't remember exactly.
You should play again.
I should play again. It is fun. That's one of the games I really bought it because I love the pieces. Like you build a little tree, and you got little tiny, what do they like resources that are cute and plastic and fun, and I like them. But I don't know. I do think, and I've talked about on the podcast before, there are games where I'm just like, why is this a computer game? And a lot of those are card games, which I guess are kind of moving away from board games. But like,
I would consider card games like the. I guess generally what we meant to say from board games is like tabletop games.
Yeah, and so card games and also dice games. When you see the dice and the cards, like I get that it's like a random generated thing, but when they're making it look like a card game, I'm like, what is the point? Like, why are we here? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like if there's going to be randomness, and that's why we put it in a video game, like put it in the back end. I don't need to see physical dice roll. Like, to me, that's nothing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3, right? You need to, it's a D&D game. You need to see the dice roll. But they also did things that like,
you can't do in D&D.
You can't do in D&D.
But also there's probably things you can do in D&D that you can't do in Baldur's Gate 3.
Correct.
Like
yes,
D&D is so open that like...
Right. Because the GM is functioning as the computer there, and they can decide to just completely throw out rules.
Right.
Or add new rules, etc.
Or like let you do something that's absolutely unhinged.
Yeah,
or
a video
not
game
let
can never do that.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like just going back to like pure board games. In theory, you can house rule board games. You can't house rule video games.
That's true.
You can play Monopoly where if you land on that one space, you get all the money.
Yeah, if you land on, I think
free
it's free
parking.
Yeah, that's a very common house rule.
Yeah, so common that I think most people just think that's the
rule.
Yeah. It turns out it's not, folks. Blowing minds here.
Yeah.
Have we reached a thesis?
I think the thesis is there are benefits to transferring a board game to a computer game. But there probably aren't a lot of use cases to transferring a computer game to a board game.
That's true. Actually, I mean, that's an avenue of discussion that we haven't even hit yet.
Yeah.
And like there are board
Has that
game
happened?
adaptations.
Okay.
So like I used to have like Warcraft 3, the board game, right?
Okay.
And was it anything like Warcraft 3?
I was going to say it can't be, right?
No,
Like, it's
not really. But that's like there are.
It's more like
it's an interesting. It's more like the theme, and I talk a lot on this podcast about using game mechanics to evoke certain like feelings, emotions, or like make you think in certain ways. And I think it's a very interesting exercise to take a game and try to translate like a board game version or a tabletop version that like still conveys and evokes like those same feelings, but like with entirely different mechanics.
Yeah.
Like the core of Warcraft 3 is you build a hero, you build an army, you fight your army, you fight over like gold mines and stuff. I forget exactly how the board game works, so I had it when I was like 11 and I played it once.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be interesting to see like at its core, that's a pretty easy thing to translate to like board game mechanics. Like, okay, you have a hero piece and like, let's say it's like Risk, where each one of your soldiers like rolls 1 dice or something. Your hero rolls 3 dice. Okay, so now you've already evoked your hero is more powerful, more important. He does something cool. You build troops and like there's like different nodes on the map that you're like moving these pieces around and fighting over, like give you more resources to buy more troop tokens. And it's like, okay, I've evoked like the inherent concept of Warcraft 3 here. You build troops, fight over resources, have a hero. And I think just to boil that down, that's an interesting game design exercise that I think like people should try to do every once in a while. Like, how would you take your favorite video game and make a board game version of it? It's cheating if you look at a board game that somebody else already made.
Yeah. Or no, you mean a video game that someone already.
No. Like,
oh, okay.
Like if you were doing Warcraft 3 in this example and you were just like, all right, I'm going to play the Warcraft 3 board game. Okay, I would just do that. That's cheating. It was a little joke I was making.
Oh, gotcha.
But I also think it would be interesting if a video game board game does exist, playing it and like thinking how like does this evoke the same like feelings as the video game? And if not, how would you improve it?
Yeah, I think that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I did want to say like this is a little off topic, but to what you were saying about the vibe and like getting the things. One thing I think was a really well done board game was the Adventure Zone Bureau of Balance, which is like the Adventure Zone is a actual play D&D podcast.
Yep.
D&D loosely, but still. Their board game evokes D&D without being
D&D.
Like the dice are not 20-sided, but they kind of look like D20s.
So, well, they are 20-sided. It's just that they repeat 1 through 6.
Yes. And
3
like
times.
You create characters, but with less
what are the 2
different
extra slots?
stats. Well, one is like the symbol for balance. I think you like get up like that's.
Oh,
like
that's
the
like
nat
a crit
20.
or something. Yeah.
So what I'm, it's that same kind of idea where like you can't make D&D a board game because there's too many things going on.
Yeah.
But you can make the essence of it a board
Correct.
game. And I think they did it well. All right, now we can move on.
Rapid fire round.
The rapid fire round.
Generate 3 random words. We have 5 minutes to come up with a game title. We have 5 minutes to come up with mechanics. The same 5 minutes.
I was going to say the same 5 minutes. Don't get it twisted.
And I guess that's all we really need to come up with.
Yeah, that's all we need to say. We just got to go.
And we have to incorporate all 3 words.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Our first 3 words are dull, money, and decade.
Dull, money, decade. Dull, money, decade.
I feel like money, decade could be something like with inflation. But dull,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dull makes me think of swords.
Oh, interesting.
And, a decade passes, a sword gets dull.
Okay.
It costs money to repair it, or maybe you are the sword repairer.
Okay.
So decade could just represent like time passes. This could be a swordsmith management game.
What if it's a sword? What if it's not a smith? What if it's a sword pawn shop? A fantasy sword pawn shop.
Okay, so you buy used swords.
You have to date the swords, restore them, and resword them. And and sell them for a profit. So it's like American Pickers, but
Okay.
fantasy.
And then
swords.
you like make the decision whether this is like
and
worth
that's money
investing
too.
into.
Yeah, we did it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so pawn shop, sword, fantasy pawn shop, sword. So like there'd be, kind of imagining a little bit like Coffee Talk with like you'd get a sword and there'd be like a book, like an in-game book you can compare like design.
I like that.
So you would like look and be like, oh, the shape of this, but like this notch. And if you get it right, you can sell it for a lot. Like you'd click like, oh, this is from like 670 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then whatever fantasy year system we decide.
BDL, before Demon Lord.
And then, you'll set it that way. And then someone comes in and they'll buy it. They'll be like, this is not BDL. This is blah, blah, blah.
I like the idea it being based on a book. And as you play the game, like you can buy more
and better books. Yeah.
That like, yeah. So like someone might walk in with a sword that you can't identify with like the resources that you have. So you go buy different books and then you can identify and be like, this is.
And that encourages you to make money. It's like a cycle.
Yeah. All right.
That's the gameplay
what's
loop.
It called?
It's not a cycle. We call it a gameplay loop.
Yes.
Here.
Oh, correct. I think that we should point out the gameplay loop of our rapid fire game rounds more.
Yeah.
Just to complete the loop.
I think,
Close the loop.
The gameplay loop of rapid fire. Okay. Fantasy Pawn Shop is kind of a fun thing to say. But I think it's because it reminds me of Fantasy Costco, speaking of the Adventure Zone.
Oh, yeah. I think we got to go, well, Fantasy Pawn Shop is like pretty simple.
A sword for your thoughts.
Oh, no. No.
Okay. Daggers and dimes.
Okay. Can we make a sword pun on the word antique?
And peak. Isn't that a fencing thing?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know.
And antiquity and snickety
Antique,
snack.
like on guard. Antique.
So it would be EN and then new word teak exclamation point. And then it would have a picture of like a fencer with a fancy sword. Okay, since I envisioned that cover so clearly,
you're going with it?
Wow,
I'm
going with it.
I'm surprised. I did not anticipate, but all right.
No, I think a little bit of a goofy name like that. That's like, I don't know. I felt it. I felt it.
That's good. No, I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right.
Starting the next timer in 3.
Oh, how much time do we have left?
Oh, a minute and 27
you
seconds.
Say. All right.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So starting the next timer in 3, 2, 1, go.
Attack. Photography. Laboratory. So Life is Strange.
Oh my god. Okay. So I was thinking more like, okay, so like Life is Strange combined with Pokemon Snap, combined with like a turn-based RPG where like your different photography things are like your attacks in like combat.
Okay.
And maybe it's not like actually combat, it's like representative combat. Like instead of the mechanic of like just taking a picture, like you use these attacks to like take better pictures.
And then the laboratory could be developing the pictures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
it's
like
film photography, okay? It's a pretentious game.
Yeah. So like the gameplay loop is a normal like RPG gameplay loop where you're exploring the world and like enemies show up, but the enemies are like a photo shoot that you have to do. And they won't leave until they're satisfied with like the photo shoot. So you use different photography techniques and different like lightings and stuff. So those are like your abilities.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about photography to know like about different techniques, like different zoom levels, and like I don't know what abilities and spells you learn.
Let me step in here a little bit. All right, so I think a cool mechanic would be different lenses, almost like different weapons. So you have your prime lenses, which don't zoom, and those can be in a wide variety of different lengths.
Oh,
which
like
could have
fisheye is like a spell.
Yeah, exactly.
Or is that a specific lens?
So a fisheye is a specific lens, but
okay,
that could be a spell. Like you put that lens on, you can cast.
I think that the lenses would be equipment, and then like the techniques would be like the spells.
Well, I would argue that using different lenses is kind of a technique. Like, I don't know what you mean by technique.
I don't. Is there not like
a lot of technique happens after the photo's taken. So like
during
there's
the lab
framing, right? Like you frame the photo, there's different angles, you can add filters, you can change the lens, you can change the amount of exposure time you have.
So I would say techniques would be filters and framing.
Well, and I would say like exposure too. So like depth of field, what's in focus, what's not in focus.
Yeah,
You could do like,
I guess what I mean by techniques is like, all right, you've got a camera with a lens in it. Now, what can you do to get different results without changing the lens? Because that's your equipment.
I feel like it could be a little bit of a learn 'em up. Like the more you play this game, the more you're going to understand what an f-stop is.
Absolutely.
Okay, I like this. But then you develop the photos. What part of the game is that? What's the gameplay loop element of going to the laboratory?
So, okay, in a normal RPG, you get your money like directly from like defeating a goblin, right?
I see it. You have to get money from selling the photos from your attacks.
Yes.
That's
so
beautiful.
like yes, you defeat the encounter by taking the photos and like they have like their HP bar is like their satisfaction or whatever. And this stretches like imagination of like what exactly things represent, because I think that they would probably want the photo before they would like leave you alone. But I think we're gonna have to like throw that out and like these battles.
It's fine.
You go back, you develop them, and then that's when you actually get like the rewards of the combat. So you don't get like the direct 15 gold next time you go to a shop. You can buy a new lens or whatever. Yeah. No, you have to go back to a laboratory, develop it, and then that gives you the resources. So like. I think that's an interesting thing. So yeah, that's the gameplay loop.
All right.
Battle monster, develop photos, and then the actual develop photos. I assume that there's gameplay things that you can do with that, but I don't know enough about photography to know.
I mean, that's where the magic really happens, I'm going to be honest with you.
But like, can you represent that with like actual gameplay? Because all I know, you go in dark room, you dip in water.
That's step like 5.
Okay. So yeah, you go in dark room.
Yeah. Well, first,
do 4 other things.
You go in pitch black
dip in
room.
water.
So developing the film and then printing are 2 different things. So you develop the film first.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. You're looking at the clock. I'm worried we're out of time. You can. So
do we have a name? Let's come up with a name and let's just filler. There is a development mini game.
Yes. Yes. I think that's fine. Okay. Shot in the dark. Because like
no thanks.
Okay.
Wait. Final Aperture, because like Final Fantasy is like an RPG series.
Final Aperture.
Is that anything?
I mean, I like it. I'm trying to think if there's a better word that's funnier. But it's pretty funny. Okay, sure. Final Aperture.
Okay, with 5 seconds left on the clock, Final Aperture. If we had more time, I feel like we could come up with a better RPG pun.
But that's okay. Because we could do I was like final f-stop, but that's like not, I don't know. I think aperture is a funny word to put there because it feels very random. All right, this is our last rapid fire.
3, 2, 1, go.
Bat.
Oh.
Cream.
Well.
Major.
What? Bat, cream, major.
We're going to have to do like ice cream or baking.
What? Okay. Cream. Tell me how that's spelled.
Cream. How else would it be spelled? Creme?
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 Okay. I guess that's 2 different words. I don't know. Okay. Bat cream. Cream could be cash rules
creme
everything
is just
around
cream
me.
In French. I don't know why you would think. Anyway, it's fine. Go ahead. Cash
rules everything around me.
It could also be your bat. You're creaming them. Like, I'm going to cream you after school with my baseball bat.
Okay, actually, maybe this isn't what we should talk about on the clock, but like acronyms. Acronyms? Can we abuse words to make them acronyms?
I think only in the most dire of situations, which I don't think we're at yet.
Okay.
What did you say the acronym was, though?
Cash rules everything around me.
I've never heard that before.
Okay, I cannot get into this with you right now.
Not.
Okay. Bat, major, cream. We've already spent a minute and almost 30 seconds.
You're a bat, like the animal.
Okay.
With an ice cream store.
Oh, okay.
You hate that. Wow. Okay. You're like, we don't have a game idea.
Okay, but what bats drink milk?
This bat, it's a spooky.
I guess actually bats are mammals, so I guess
all
all bats drink milk.
It's a spooky bat ice cream store, and you make
Okay.
spooky ice cream, and it's a management game, and your name is Major Spooky.
Major Spooky, the bat that runs an ice. So what's the gameplay loop?
Okay, wait. So what if it is like all the bats are like, you're ridiculous for having this
We're
idea.
fruit bats, you crazy bat.
Yeah, so like you're starting your ice cream shop from scratch, so everyone thinks you're crazy, so you have to come up with major marketing campaigns to get people interested in your ice cream.
Okay.
And
so the gameplay loop is the marketing campaigns rather than the actual.
but that's part of it. So it's marketing, then store management on a loop.
Okay.
Because one, yeah.
So a cycle. So a
marketing,
cycle.
store management, money, back into like upgrades, and then into marketing again.
Okay. So gameplay loop. You start a marketing Okay, let's say it's like weekly marketing campaigns. So you have let's say every Sunday you launch a marketing campaign, like you design and launch it. Then Monday through Saturday or Monday through Friday, you do this actual running of the store, and depending on like the marketing campaign that you set up, more customers or less customers or more specific, like customers looking for specific things come in.
Yes, yeah.
You do that day to day, and then Saturday upgrade day
Yep.
to reinvest the money that you just got
into your ice cream.
And then Sunday plan new marketing, and then Monday through Friday, etc. So that's
it's fun because
the gameplay
it's
loop.
spooky themed. All right, now we
Yes.
have to name it. Major Spooky's Ice Cream Adventure.
Major Spooky's Ice Cream Dream.
Ooh, yes.
1 minute and 25 seconds left on the clock.
Will his ice cream dream become a nightmare? You have to decide.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Okay.
god.
All right.
God. All right. Well, that's our podcast. Thanks so much
We're
for
done.
listening. We're done with it for this time. You can find us at makethatgame.com, the best website on the internet. You can
It's my day job.
You can also find us on YouTube, youtube.com/@makethatgame. You can find us on Twitch, twitch.tv/makethatgame. We will be going live on Sunday, October 27th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, so check us out then. We play video games live. That's what we do on the live. I just figured I'd let you know. And then you can also email us, makethatgamepodcast@gmail.com. And we love it if you leave a rating or review on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. It is so helpful to us to get our podcast discovered. And if you heard a game today that you think is going to be great and you need it to be here, but we're not making it, so you need to get out there and make that game.